accurate, if you will. I mean, that was more just like in our sweet spot as far as, age. So, I mean, Slippery When Wet came out in 86. We started high school in 88, and just Bon Jovi was continuously growing at that point. But there's a line in Never Say Goodbye. And you remember when we lost the keys and you lost more than that in my backseat, baby. That was a no-go. Can't have that song. It's encouraging, teenage sex in cars. We're not going to allow it. So, the second song on the list, we had to vote, what we wanted. Open Arms by Journey. I mean, it's good. It's Journey. They don't really make bad stuff. But yeah, not my favorite Journey song. Again, it's the whole ballad thing. But if you compare, and Justin and I talked about this, you compare Foreigner's ballads to Journey's ballads, and Journey's ballads are still, to me, more rooted in rock and soul. So they have a little bit more oomph behind them, a little bit more musical integrity. Air Supply. So Even the Nights Are Better. What a way better song. Even the Nights Are Better. That's a good tune. I can still listen to that and be like, I have no shame in having owned that record. Heat of the Moment by Asia. Private Eyes by Hall Oates. Far, far better tune. That's just me. Lindsey Buckingham is here with Trouble, which is just a weird, such an 80s pop song, like synthy pop song, a lot of falsetto. It's okay. Not my favorite. Rod Stewart's here with Young Turks. My gosh, Juice Newton's all over this list. Freeze Frame by Geils Band. That's a way better tune than Centerfold. Now, one of the interesting songs in the list. So I mentioned that whole Blue-Eyed Soul thing. Huey Lewis and the News is on here with Do You Believe in Love? Now, I did not realize until probably about, 5-6 years ago. I never Googled it. I never looked it up. Just it would come on and be like, that is such a great song. I had no idea that it was a cover song. Not only is it a cover song, but the person who wrote it has a whole other claim to fame in the music industry. So Do You Believe in Love was originally entitled We Both Believe in Love by a band called Supercharge. I think that's the name of it, Supercharge. But it was written by Robert John Mutt Lang, who is most well known for being the producer of AC/DC and Def Leppard, and then eventually marrying Shania Twain and producing all of her work. But what I found so curious when I listened to that original version, We Both Believe in Love, is that the lead singer for Supercharge and the way he sang this is oddly reminiscent of Bon Scott. So I'm just wondering how much of that was of interest or directed Mutt's, desire to go ahead and produce them at all. But it's kind of it's just so different than Huey Lewis's version. Because I think Huey Lewis is a remarkably underrated singer. Like, he's a really, really good singer. And a lot of power. But I'm a sucker for rasp. I'm a sucker for rasp in the voice. And Huey has it. But do yourself a favor. Listen to the original. If nothing else, then more just as a curiosity. But it's a different tune. But that's because Huey Lewis rewrote some of the lyrics to kind of fit this Do You Believe in Love? Another song that I was, pleasantly reminded of, and a band that I'm not necessarily an overall big fan of, 38 Special, Caught Up in You. What a great song. And the fact that they started out in that whole Southern rock vibe, because obviously, maybe not obvious to everyone, but you have Donnie Van Zant, so one of the Van Zant brothers, most obviously, known for Leonard Skinner. Let's see, what are all the Van Zant brothers? Johnny's the youngest, right? Yeah, Ronnie and Johnny. So Ronnie Van Zant died in the famous plane crash in Mississippi. And younger brother Johnny has been the lead singer for Skynyrd for basically that long. But that song, Caught Up in You, it's really good. It's kind of, they have found this formula for radio-friendly rock that's still like legit rock music with just enough of that southern flair to probably still appeal to their old longtime fans. Alabama is on the list. Love in the First Degree. Boring. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Like, how are they even on this chart in 1982? That blows my mind. With Wasted on the Way. Again, a snooze fest. Absolutely terrible. I mentioned Elton John in 1979. He's going to have songs in like every decade. Do you know these songs? I had to listen to them and I was like, this isn't very good. Is this the same songwriting duo? Is this Bernie and Elton? Blue Eyes. And he's on here again with Empty Garden. Hey, hey, Johnny. Ugh, awful. And you know, I mentioned Crosby, Stills, and Nash. You also have America on the list. You know, they were another band from, you know, 1970. I was thinking they were earlier than that. But nevertheless, they're on here with, where'd it go? You Can Do Magic. And I think for the longest time in my head, I would think of Abracadabra, you know, by Steve Miller. But no, it's America, You Can Do Magic. Did It in a Minute by Hall Oates. I don't really recall that song very much, and I didn't think it was that great. And now I mentioned Grand Theft Auto. The theme, and I forget which game, but was I Ran So Far Away by a Flock of Seagulls. Is a Flock of Seagulls not just the epitome of this early 80s synth pop scene? I mean, they are it. Like, they are absolutely it. It's not a good song. Not really. It's got that catchy hook and like the keyboards are cool, but it kind of falls apart in the verses. I don't know. It's not as good as I remember it being. And here's an artist that I absolutely cannot stand. I've tried because I've had people tell me, no, he's a really good songwriter. Jackson Browne, Somebody's Baby. I know it's on Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but oh my gosh, Jackson Browne bores me to tears. Paul McCartney is here with Take It Away. I had forgotten about it, and then I played it. I'm like, holy cow, what a good tune. I mean, it's probably not his best, but then you get a hook. You just get another one of those beautiful, amazing Paul McCartney hooks. Like I said, Open Arms is on the list, but Don't Stop Believing. Probably, now in hindsight, or with resurgence that it had, here you have Don't Stop Believing. Just seems odd to me that the other song was the bigger hit. Really interesting. Joan Jett and her cover of Crimson and Clover. I absolutely love that song anyway. I love Tommy James. Again, that's before, our generation really, but Tommy James is really quite good. So I recommend you go and find yourself some Tommy James. And then for the first time on the list, we have The Police and Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. I'll be honest, that song was on a mix CD when you could burn your CDs. I mean, you still can. Nobody does. They make playlists. But this was on a mix CD that I made on the day that I proposed to my wife. Because, of course, in the song, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, it says, I resolve to call her up 1,000 times a day, ask her if she'll marry me, some old-fashioned way. And that's exactly what I did. Oh, I have to retract my earlier statements about Blue-Eyed Soul, because I forgot that Michael Macdonald is on the list with I Keep Forgetting. Oh my gosh, what a good song. He still performs. And obviously a lot of that song is done in falsetto. But now that he's older, more grizzled, a lot of wear and tear on the voice. He is 70 years old as of February 12th of this year. It's much more gravelly, and you always had a hint of that in his voice. It was there, but now he does it, and it's just this completely different tone. So it's not silky smooth in the same way that it was in 1982. But man, he's still a hell of a singer. The Go-Go's are on here with Vacation, and an album that has been brought up again because obviously we're reaching, 40 years, is Van Halen and their Diver Down record. And Diver Down was a covers album. So sometimes when a band of that stature puts out covers, it's either looked at as lazy or a cash grab. But sometimes bands just want to pay homage to the bands that had, influenced them. And obviously they had done covers before. But here they are, number 88, with Oh Pretty Woman, the Roy Orbison classic. I'd mentioned it before. I think that David Lee Roth is a really good singer. It's unconventional, it's different, but I really do enjoy his tones. Hot in the City by Billy Idol, which I think he had done maybe did he do it with Degeneration X? I forget, but that was, I think, one of his first bigger hits in the States. I'd have to research that. Kids in America by Kim Wilde. What else is... Oh! And I was surprised how low this was on the list because it is such a classic at this point. Working for the Weekend by Loverboy. I mean, that song is iconic. And I would have thought that Working for the Weekend would have been much higher on the list. And if anyone who doesn't know, Mike Reno from Loverboy, if you listen to singers, and I do, I listen to the singers, Justin listens to the drummers. Now, we both listen to the whole thing, of course, but I have an affinity for singers. Mike Reno is a really killer rock voice. Working for the Weekend. And then, I mentioned boring artists. It's this weird mix of rockers, and then there's still like the last vestiges of not really disco. It's more moving into a different form of pop, but there's still dance music, right? But then you have this really boring AM radio stuff. Christopher Cross with Arthur's Theme. Oh, love Dudley Moore. I mentioned before, so all the Dudley Moore movies probably shouldn't have, probably wildly inappropriate. I know they're inappropriate, but gosh, what a boring song. And I just have to mention that Paul McCartney's on the list, but in the early 80s, one of the Beatles' big peers, and some would say rivals, the Rolling Stones, had some great songs. And in fact, one of their best songs, now it's not the one that's on the list here, one of their all-time best songs was like 80 or 81, and that's Start Me Up. To think that Start Me Up came that late in their career, they'd already been around for like 20 some odd years. Maybe not 20, but close. But here they are with Waiting on a Friend, which was the, I think, first music video that they did. Kind of fun. But anyway, those are the hits of 1982. 1982. Some really cool stuff on here. I do think about Rollerport. Rollerport was one of those things where I had my first crush, had a couple of fights, ate a lot of pizza, went up in the DJ booth to kind of see how the magic happened, and obviously practicing skating and taking skate lessons, because it was really exciting when you learned how to go backwards. But kind of good times. So why don't we go and switch gears here, and like I had done on the 1979 episode, let's take a look at the movies of 1982. Now, once again, these are some really pivotal movies, just in cinema history, and many that are considered classics, and some that are less than classic.